There are many wonders in the old world, but some of them are known, some of them are not. And today we're going to talk about a little known one, a little nation called Arabi. And yes, if you're thinking that it has something to do with Arabs or the Middle East, you are probably right. In fact, that's where they base their idea from. Now, Arabi is a nation of humans south of the Old World, west of Nehekhara, and northwest of the Southlands rainforest. The position is, well, interesting. I should have a picture of it, but needlessly to say, there isn't going to be one. South of Kilea, past the stormy seas of the Black Gulf, lies the Kingdom of Arabi. Here the descendants caliphs and sultans rule cities made of white stone, and their realms are vast deserts oases that glitter like jewels in mountains inhabited by fierce nomad warriors. Several great cities form a loose coalition, though in effect they are all independent states with their own rules, traditions, and customs. The Sultan of Al-Arabi claims to rule the whole peninsula, but has little power over the independent coastal city-states or over the fierce nomad tribes who wander the great desert of Arabi. Arabi is not united by a single government. Instead, the sheikhs and emirs of the land are constantly warring with each other. It is not uncommon for an entire desert tribe to offer their swords to the highest bidder and become a mercenary company. Sheikhs, emirs, and sultans of Gofr, Lashik, and Martek live in unimaginable luxury, served by hundreds of slaves who fulfill their every whim. Their harems are filled with voluptuous beauties from across the world, and their treasure chambers with all the splendor and wealth of that distant land. Some of these despots are cruel by their nature, ordering beheadings and mutilations of even the pettiest criminals, while others are great rulers and patrons of the art and science. Arabians have knowledge of gunpowder weapons, but their religious dogma prevents them from developing socially and technologically. Arabians worship a single god who is manifested on the world by his chosen prophet and share a common language. Can you guess which one is that? It's called Arabic. Yeah, it's Arabic. All Arabians speak and understand Arabic, although most of the merchant classes would be able to handle Old Worlder fairly easily. Most Arabians are shortish and swarthy, with hooked nose and dark hair and eyes. Some of the Arabian kingdoms or caliphates lie upon the northern border of the Southlands, and the people there are dark-skinned, although they share common culture with other Arabians. The toughest fighters come from the nomadic tribes of the desert, who are greatly feared by the more civilized traders who ply their trade along the caravan routes through the great deserts. The most notable warriors of Arabi are the dervishes, fanatic religious warriors, all too willing to die for their god. Another famous type are the eunuchs, individuals trained since birth to serve as warriors or guards. I guess it doesn't mention the fact that eunuchs don't have balls, but whatever. Not much is known about the society of the people of Arabi, but from the new merchants and explorers who made their way into the kingdom and empire of the Old World, it can be assumed that the commerce and trade are extremely important part of their society. The Arabians were able to establish and monopolize the trade routes into the lucrative jade and spice lands of the Far East such as Katai and Ind, topics for another video, as well as trading with the barbaric Norse tribes, establishing the largest slave market in the city of Kofr. All this thanks to their unsuppressed mastery in their navigation of the sea. The economic growth of Arabi has led their people to the pursuit of the fine arts in poetry, alchemy, medicine, and architecture, thus producing some of the world's most notable poets, doctors, sorcerers, and architects. Sorcerers in Araby are said to be able to capture genies in bottles, who upon uncorking rise to immense size to do the bidding of their master. And these wizards are rumored to fly upon carpets. Mystery shrouds the study of necromancy. To learn the dark arts, an aspirant must either seek a necromancer and become an apprentice, or acquire one of the forbidden tomes, such as the Book of Dead, written by the mad Arabian prince Abdul ben Rashid. He traveled to the land of the dead in the east of Araby, and driven mad by his experience, he wrote his blasphemous masterpiece. He did not live to see the widespread public revulsion of his work, or the great pyre where the Caliph of Ka Sabat burned all the copies he could find. Unfortunately, the Caliph did not find them all. Now let's talk about the flora and fauna, because you mostly expect it to be Middle Eastern, so it's gonna be a lot of desert. But let's see about that. Some isolated giant bands live among the world-edge mountains, even so far south as Araby. Mummies are corpses, carefully preserved against the ravages of time by secret magical arts. These rites were practiced in many ancient civilizations, including that of the Slan and the predecessors of the Arabians, the ones known as the Tomb Kings. They are relatively rare and solitary creatures. They can be seen in tombs of Araby and Lustria. Lions are mainly from Southlands and parts of Araby. The wolf is smaller relative to the Old World giant wolf. They live in ever-decreasing numbers in the Old World in Araby. Now, are you ready for the interesting part? The dragons were masters of forests and mountain tops. There were very few men at all in those days, and all of the old world was one huge wild forest from the world-edge mountains to the sea. Today they are a legend in the old world. What few dragons exist live in almost perpetual slumber within deep caverns among their ancestral nesting site. The world-edge mountains and the mountains of Morn. Dragons probably exist now only in handfuls scattered throughout the world. The world-edge mountains and mountains of Morn must house some, but who knows how many. Probably there are several dozen scattered throughout the old world, as many, again, in Araby as in western Katai. Now let's go to the history, the last bit of this video. The early years of Arabic history are not well documented by the scholars of the Old World, but it is known that Arabi suffered from invasions from the Tomb Kings of the land of the dead, after the fall of the Kemari civilization at the hands of the first necromancer, Nagash. Later, Arkan the Black invaded Araby with his undead army and sacked the city of Belalid in the year minus 1149 IC, precipitating what would be known as the War of the Death. A 1,000-year-long war in which Arkan reduced a once mighty and wealthy Arabian civilization to a weak city-state and a handful of fiercely independent desert tribes. It was only when Nagash called Arkan back to the land of the dead that the war ended. It was in 1150 IC that Ibn Jalaba, a famous explorer of Araby, discovered the lost lizardman city of Zlatan. There he was welcome, since the Slam predicted his arrival, apparently, and was able to barter with the peaceful lizardmen and exchange pearls and spices of Araby for gold, which the lizardmen had in abundance and were quite willing to part with, since it was considered worthless. Jalaba returned to Araby a very rich man after establishing the first trade agreement between lizardmen and humans. Circa 1430 IC, Jafar, a powerful Arabian sorcerer and the villain from Aladdin, wielded the coalition of several desert tribes and expanded his city-state to a small empire with the capture of Al-Harik, Kofer, Martek, and Lashik. Legends speak of him summoning demons and conversing with spirits. The Skaven and Arabi secretly ally with Sultan Jafar, spying for him and murdering his rivals in exchange for warpstone. In 1448 8 IC, Jafar, convinced by the nefarious Skaven that the Estalian kingdoms were planning an invasion against his rule, gathered a vast army, prepared his fleet for war. In response, large contingents of knights from Britannia and the Empire drove the Arabian forces back to their homeland. The war was eventually brought by the Knights of the Old World to Araby itself, precipitating the conflict known as, can you guess, the Crusades, which created many orders of Imperial and Bretonnian chivalry, including the Empire's Knights of the Blazing Sun and Knights of the Maghrita. Around the year 1500 IC, Sultan Darius e Quabir launched a series of religious wars against the Old World, without any lasting successes. So basically started as jihad. Legends dating from this time have colored Old World attitudes to inhabitants of Araby, although there is a fair amount of trade between the two areas. Now, in earlier versions, the Arabians were called Arabs. I guess they changed the name for copyright reasons, as now we don't have orcs, but Orokus. And anyway, these were the Arabis. Thank you for watching.